Actually, I want to be the real estate resource for people. Your real estate handbook from me, from a real estate expert. I've been a real estate broker for 15 years, and I feel that there's a lot that I want to share with people. And one of the things people ask me, I want to do a lease purchase instead of actually doing a purchase. There are times that, lease purchase may be the best thing for you. You have to consider what are the pros and what are the cons. And one of the things, maybe your credit is not quite right. Maybe you're going through a divorce and you can't actually purchase a property just yet. But the important things that you need to understand is, do you put down $10,000? Do you go in and update a house that does not belong to you? So if you understand, hey, I'm just going to do a lease purchase until I can afford to purchase this home, great. But don't put your money in someone else's property. There are two things that are needed in a lease purchase. There's a purchase agreement, and then there's a lease agreement. Those are two different documents that you need to have. And you need to understand how those things affect you. So let's say, for instance, someone says, hey, go ahead and give me $10,000, $20,000 down on this property. What if they're not paying the mortgage and the home is foreclosed? You have to think about that as well. So what I recommend, do a lease purchase, do maybe a $500 to $1,000 deposit for the purchase agreement, and follow the regular terms of a lease agreement. So that way you're protected. So, we talked about bandit signs. What are our bandit signs? Bandit signs are those signs that you see all over town. We buy houses cash, any condition, and so on and so forth. But a lot of those people are wholesalers. They'll get your property, and let's say for $50,000. Then before they close on that property with you, they've sold it to someone else and possibly make maybe $10,000, $15,000. But shouldn't your goal be to get the best price for your home? So I recommend call an expert. Have that person work with you. We can wholesale your property for you as well. Instead of paying the middleman, you get all of your money. So that's another thing that we've discussed before, is that those bandit signs, if you need to sell a property that you're in jeopardy of going to foreclosure, or if you just have a property that's distressed and you want to get rid of it, give us a call. Let us get the most money for your property.
So how protected am I between buying from we buy cash versus going through the proper channels or buying something like that?
Well, if you go to the person that has a sign that says we buy your house cash, you're dealing with one person. And if you come through me, I may have 10 or 15 cash buyers that I can shop your property for you and get the best deal for you. So that's the difference of calling that person on the sign or calling an expert that can actually shop your property to get the best price for you and still get it moved in record time. As your real estate resource, this is a funny story. Not so funny, but it is a funny story. Let's say a property that's really worth $15,000. There was a gentleman that had the property that he did a lease to own on a property that really is valued about $15,000. So he did a lease to own agreement for $500 a month for 15 years. So a property that was really valued about $15,000 is going to end up costing this person $90,000 in 15 years. Now, mind you, this property is a distressed property, does not have utilities. Part of the ceiling was missing in this property, but this gentleman was so excited to have a property that he was buying. Hey, this is mine. But the contract that it was written on was not clear. It didn't have the price that he was actually buying the property for, but yet still he was giving this guy money. So I guess my concern as a real estate, let's say resource, your real estate resource, is that find out, what are you paying? Have someone to review your contract. If you're going to pay somebody $500 a month for 15 years, find a real estate expert that can go over your contract with you. So this is what we did. The gentleman contacted me. He said, Denise, I don't feel that this is right. So I went with him to this gentleman's office downtown near the courthouse. And, I laid out to him, hey, this is not a contract. You don't have the amount of the property. You don't have the end date of the contract. So a contract should give you an amount, and it should have a start date and an end date. It didn't have that. So in arguing that fact, the guy told him, look, I want you out of my life, and here's your money. So able to get this gentleman was back for a property that he was doing lease to own, but the terms were not defined. I had this funny situation that happened. I was a list agent on a property, and the sellers were listing the little small property. The sellers were selling it for, let's say, $75,000. I represented the seller. Buyer had his own agent, and I got a purchase agreement for, let's say, $85,000. I'm thinking, $85,000 for a property that's $75,000. The buyer's agent never asked for closing costs. Didn't ask the seller to fix anything on a house that was probably about 50 years old. And I'm like, who's representing you? Who did you run the comps on the property? It was listed for $75,000, but you're offering $10,000 more than what it's worth, and you didn't ask the seller for any closing costs. But see, since I was representing the seller, my hands were tied. I really wanted to share with him, look, you're paying too much for this house. But it just frustrates me that people don't know. Ask those questions. Show me the comps. Show me what the other homes in this neighborhood sold for within the last 6 months, so I can make an educated offer on this property. And then, most realtors, we can find out if other sellers have assisted buyers with closing costs. So if we can see that, then we should suggest to you, maybe you should all ask for closing costs on this property. Just keep in mind, your realtor should be working for you, but you also need to be educated to check somebody. Hey, did you ask for closing costs on this? Did you ask for a home warranty on this? Show me. So get that person to show you, what are you doing for me? If I'm not paying you, but the seller's paying you, you're working for me, I need you to fight for my rights of things that I don't know. So that's a true situation that happened that I like sharing with people. Seek to understand what it is you're spending your money on.
So you say fighting for closing costs, and what other things like I should be looking for that I off top that I should know that my realtor should fight for me for?
Well, we should fight for you on, are you getting the right price on this property? How do you know that? What did the other homes sell for in this subdivision within the last 6 months? Are you offering a good price? Or are you paying too much for it? So those are things you should know.
So there's a way I can bypass the closing costs.
What do you mean? How can you bypass the closing costs?
There's a way as the buyer, the closing costs can be tagged to the seller.
Yeah, you can always ask the seller to pay for your closing costs or some of your closing costs. The old saying, a closed mouth don't get fed. If you don't ask for it, then I'm not going to give it to you.
Right.
And there's another thing that, in having this conversation with you, I thought about most realtors, if they have a property listed, and the buyer calls that realtor, who is the realtor already working with? The seller. And if a realtor is in a dual position, we really can't recommend to you the things you should do, because we're just in an information process here. We can't show you how to negotiate on a property, because there's a form that we ask you to sign, and it's a dual agency disclosure that lets you know I can't represent you. But yet still, most buyers call the name or the realtor that's on the sign, and they can't represent you. Hire your own agent, someone that's going to fight for your rights.
Right, so you recommend, if I'm buying a house, have my agent separate from the sellers.
Exactly. Aren't you going to love who you're with first?
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So if
So the dual agent is just not the best route to go.
A dual agency is not the best route for you, it is for me because I get double the commission.
Right.
But I really didn't have to do any work on negotiating the contract. So hire your own agent. Interview some agents. You know, see who's going to be a good fit for you. You want to be in real estate, but you don't want to be a real estate agent? Be a wholesaler. Be an investor. There are some people that may just come to you and say, hey, I got this piece of property. I don't care about dealing with a realtor. I just want you to get it off my hands. Well, get it. And then you can wholesale it to someone else. It just depends on what that person wants. I mean, the information I'm putting out here is that it depends on what you want. If you want someone to buy your house from you, if it's a distressed property that you have this huge bill you need to take care of and you need somebody to buy it in 7 days, well, we have people that can do that. If you have someone that has a property that's in jeopardy of going into foreclosure, well, we have some people that can work with you on that as well. But if you want to be an investor, hey, now is the time. Okay, so let's say, for instance, you put an offer in on a property and you have 10 days to do an inspection, and you decide, you know what, this home is just not for me. I've checked it out. It's in a flood zone, or insurance is going to be too much. I found out that it had termites. I just want to cancel this. Within your first 10 days before you choose option 2 to have your seller make any repairs, you can cancel your purchase agreement for any reason whatsoever. So it keeps you from feeling trapped. Hey, I gotta go along with this. But there are certain things in the purchase agreement that gives you an out, and you have to understand that. So I would recommend, hey, give me a copy of the purchase agreement before I go under contract, so I'll understand what it is that I'm signing. If the seller decides not to repair anything, you can get out of the contract and get your deposit back. If you don't qualify for the loan, something happens, you can get your deposit back. So don't allow someone just to tell you something and you believe it. Show me, ask them, where is it in the purchase agreement that says I don't get my deposit back? You know, just make certain that the person that you're working with.
So there is a such thing as you can't get your deposit.
There is a such thing that you can't get your deposit back. If you go through the process of the purchase agreement, you've done everything that you were supposed to do, and then you tell your agent, hey, the house I really wanted, I mean, let's say you're closing next week, and then you tell your agent, the house I really wanted is on the market now. I don't want this one. Well, I'm sorry. The seller, you can get out of it, but the seller's going to sue you for 10% of the value of that property. And then the agent can sue you for commission and sue you for attorney fees. So you have to know when to get out. So you can get out, it's just knowing when. Yeah, so I think that's an important thing for people to understand is, what are you signing? It is a legal and binding document. It's an agreement.
It's really important. It kind of gives me an eye opener.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I ever try to get into this business, especially for somebody like me, I'm very shy. I don't like working in public. Mm-hmm. I've never had a public job. Even now in my office, I only come in by appointment. I like working from home in my own, my own zone, my own world. But when you say about investments or wholesaling, it's like I even really don't have to be out here soliciting for this. I can just be the middle person.
Yes.
How does that work?
You can be the middle person. Let's say, for instance, if you do your research on a property, find out, hey, this guy or this lady really wants to sell this property, and they're okay with you buying it. And if they decide, hey, if the property, if you buy it for $50,000 and it's worth maybe $130,000, $140,000 after the work is done, but you don't want to do the work, right? You just want to sign your paper over to someone else. Well, you can assign it to someone else, and they can pay you $10,000 for your contract. then they can go in and make the repairs on the property and put it on the market. That may be what they like to do. But since you said you don't like to go into work and you like to do stuff from home, this is the perfect thing for you if you want to get into real estate and manage it yourself. But you can research properties, and if someone wants to sell it to you, wholesale it to someone else if you don't want to do the work. Easy.
Easy money.
Hi, I'm Denise, your resource for real estate. I am your real estate professional. Give me a call or inbox me if you have any real estate questions.